Our next speaker is Kyle Wathen. And Kyle is going to talk to us about a prep PREP. It's a package from templates. It's an R package to streamline development of Shiny apps and R packages. Kyle, please take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome to my talk. I'd like to start with a little bit of background. I've been in several pharma companies and worked with people at different ones. And one of the things within the pharmaceutical industry is that typically the clinical trial statistician is focused on, of course, the trial rather than software development. So they often are not receiving a lot of professional software development skills. It's things that they've had to learn on their own. But they often contribute to R development either through functions or scripts or Shiny, which can often lead to what I would call a common practice and things where I've actually been sent. I've got scripts that were often pretty long. If they were better, they would have some code chunks where they put good comments, and then even better, actually utilizing these functions, which would be really great. However, that's not always the norm. It's typically just very long files from thousands of lines to tens of thousands. The computations that get done are really good, but the testing is in no way formal, so verifying that they've actually been there can be a bit difficult. When we switch over to doing Shiny apps, one of the key things is people Google it, they get started with a very simple app. A couple months later, what you've got is one or two files that are 20 to 50 or 60,000 lines, and very inconsistent. Even within the groups within a company, there would be things that would be very different. And probably the biggest issue from a software engineering standpoint is that the UI and computation are often combined in the same file, making it very difficult for team development and or testing. So we sat down and started thinking about what packages could we use to actually get rid of this. I don't think test that needs any introduction in this group, so I'm actually going to skip it. The next would be using Golem. It's a package that can be utilized to develop your Shiny apps, and their exact quote is building production grade Shiny applications. And it does it in the form of a package, which is a really great way to approach things because that helps with testing. However, when I started looking at it with the idea of thinking about inexperienced or less experienced clinical trial statisticians, I found that it required a bit of configuration as well as it added the dependency to your package for Golem, which isn't the end of the world. But the biggest problem was it didn't help with the consistency or getting a nice looking Shiny app up and running very quickly. So we sat down with a set of goals. We wanted to take these applications that were a mixture of UI code and computation code. We wanted to break it apart to the computation as a package and the Shiny UI. Hopefully we could actually get that as a package as well. And then we would have these pieces talk together. This would allow us to actually utilize the skills of the individuals within our organization to where the computational people could focus on the package. And if they knew and were interested in the UI, could also help develop that. This also made it very easy to break out the pieces and test them. So what we actually started thinking about was a package to help build a Shiny app, which would start with a basic layout so that as people within the group create them, there would be a consistent look, feel, and implementation style across them. We'd like to have a couple of common features like a theming, which a couple of talks ago is something we'll definitely need to get integrated in. We'd like to have things like a user feedback and maybe options for changing things. One of the key things in terms of development that we wanted to accomplish was to get away from these single files that get built up and are extremely difficult to test and or do in a team environment. So we started working on that. We also wanted it organized as a package and be able to add functionality like tabs without enforcing a dependency on our prep package. The other one, which is a lot less of a complication, is adding the R packages. where we're simply moving away from R scripts that are in a folder to an actual package and hoping to get the testing set up through test that right away. Though it seems like something that's only a few steps, for the less experienced user who doesn't do it all the time, it's very helpful to actually combine these in a nice, simple function call, which I'll show. So when we go through, we were thinking about three things. We'd have a package that was actually set up and would contain Shiny. We'd have an option to do a package, typical computation type package, and then also another Shiny app. One of the things that we were thinking about was building a Shiny app to help do this. Much like the talk yesterday from Bo, we actually decided to go the other direction to begin with and start by building an RStudio project file. And so once you actually have installed Prep, what you get are three new package or project styles within your projects. So when you create a new project, you have options for creating Prep packages. So the example I'm going to walk through next would be Shiny as a package. Something that looks very familiar if you've ever set up an RStudio project. You could go through, and for this particular example, a couple key things. Noting that you're adding a display name and your username, you also have options to include an example module, which I'll show. And the idea was to get from where you had to do a lot of work to get a nice looking Shiny app to being able to do a simple create project. You land into RStudio where you have it organized as a actual package where all of your code would live in the R directory. So anything that you learn about package development for this Shiny app also applies to any other package development. So once you've started your project, if you simply build it and then do a run app command, what this will actually do is give you an up and running Shiny app that is consistent as people within an organization use it. A couple key features of the default UI that comes out of it is all of the text is developed in R Markdown so that people that are not familiar with Shiny can help document. You also get an example module. One of the key things I really wanted to have was a feedback form. So we actually tie this into our SQL server so that we can see all of our other apps and what's going on. You have the common theming, much like what we saw a couple of talks ago. You can easily flip between these, so that makes it very easy. But since we don't have a dependency on the Prep package, how do we actually go about adding things? For example, suppose you wanted to add a tab to your app. How could you do this? Using Prep, you could actually simply call add package if you want. Add tab, if you actually wanted to have subtabs as well, you'd simply include those in your call, rebuild your package, and when you run the app, you would actually get a new tab. It's not a lot of work to do this manually, but it is sure nice to have it all done in a consistent way where you actually have the subtabs as well. But now that you've got the first step where you've got a nice looking Shiny app that can be consistent, what about the actual package? So if you actually started a new project as a package, again, being very familiar to those who have done RStudio projects, you could create it and it would be started with examples of how to build a package, some details, and then you have the major added advantage that the testing is already set up. So the inexperienced user doesn't need to know how to do it. It's already done for them. It also adds a new function to your ability. So if you call add function to package, what this will actually do is create in your R directory. So in your computation, you're adding something, say, calculate a p-value. It would create the file as well as the test file. And while this is helpful, it would be great if they actually came with the default style, which they do. One of the key things here was to get people to have a starting point and not have to write everything from scratch. If you don't actually like the template that comes with it, it's very easy to actually add. And so while there's more that we could go through, what I'm going to conclude on here is that we've taken an application that was combined between the Shiny UI and your computations. We've split it apart. giving people the ability to add several new functions very easily. And we're looking at releasing this on CRAN, but for now, it is actually available on our GitHub. And a special thanks to Jeremy Wildfire and Nan Chen for their help developing it. It was worked through the BioPharm Software Working Group. You are welcome to get the package off of our GitHub and contact me if you have any questions. I'd like to thank the organizers and thank you for attending.
Thank you, Kyle, for that fantastic talk. Certainly, this would help a lot of us who have a tough time creating apps.
Yeah,
and there was one question. There was one question about where to find, but Jeremy did post the location already, so I'll spare you that question. Again, thank you very much for that fantastic talk. We are up on our time for the break, and before I do that, let's give our speakers a round of applause, all of them. Thank you very much.